Everybody loves variegated plants, am I right? Well, not everybody. There are some people that still love the natural green, almost wild type plant, probably because the green varieties are stronger, healthier, more robust, and that's probably because they have more chlorophyll in their leaves. Variegated plants have less chlorophyll, and those are the patches of the color, the white, the cream, the pink, whatever you call it. So in this video, I want to show you some of my favorite variegated plants in my collection. Just some, because I have lots of plants. But yeah, so having said that, welcome back to my channel, and let's jump right in. Boom. First plant I want to show you is this Tradescantia. Now, if you do research on the internet, you'll hear a lot of people are saying that this is from unknown parentage because Tradescantia have been so hybridized that a lot of times it's hard to know what the parents were, where these plants have come from. So it's probably from the continental group of Tradescantia, so they've been hybridized so much. But if you want this plant, you can find it under a couple different names that I've seen so far. One is Tradescantia Quicksilver, and another is Tradescantia Sana. The variegation on these leaves is beautiful. It's like a pinstriping of white. The leaves are longer and narrower than typical Tradescantia. And if you look at the coloring, it has the striping, but the striping varies from a dark green to a light green to a grayish to a white. So really, really classy looking, very pretty. This plant was in a 2-inch pot when I got it, and I haven't had it for that long, maybe a couple months. But and you could see because the roots have not taken off yet. But as soon as I got it, I took it out of the pot and I put it into water culture because a lot of these types of Tradescantia don't do well for me in soil in the house. In a greenhouse, they probably do great, but in my house, not so much. So I always put them into water culture. And as you can see, the older leaves are back here, and the newer growth has been really taking off. It's very, very happy in its water culture home. And I'm using Nutricoat fertilizer pellets. You can see them in there, it's still dissolving. And very, very easy. These plants are also very easy to propagate. Just take a stem cutting, and at the nodes, you will get roots, I'd say, in as soon as 3 days. I've gotten them in like 3-4 days, roots starting to poke out. So very, very easy to grow, beautiful, and a staple in anybody's collection, I'd say. At least one Tradescantia you should have. That's just my opinion. Anyway, moving on to the next plant, we have a succulent. Boom! This is a variegated Graptopetalum, and I believe this is a variegated Graptopetalum Purple Delight. Usually the Purple Delights have more wide leaves like this, and the Paraguayense are more lanceolate. They're more long leaved. And you can see the variegation is gorgeous. Now this is under a grow light, but it's not very close to the grow light. It's kind of maybe like 3 feet below the light. So it's not getting a lot of light, especially at the growth point now. So there's a lot of green. But if you look at the older leaf, this is when I had it closer to a different light. And you can see that it's got the purple in the middle with a little bit of gray. And then the outer parts have pinkish orange, almost like a sunset color. It's just a fantastic plant. And the more light you give it, the better it's gonna look. And these plants can handle direct sun and heat. I love Graptopetalum. I have a nice Graptopetalum collection, all different species and cultivars, and I grow them either in acrylic like this one or in just plain old water culture, and they do great. I've had some Graptopetalum in water culture for a very long time, and they're not showing any signs of stopping. They don't need a lot of fertilizer, succulents in general, I'd say, but you know, you can give this a Better Grow Orchid Plus or Nutricoat pellets, both of which you can find in the link in the description of this video, the Amazon link. But they are just very easy succulents that I love because I love easy plants. And you know, some succulents can be a little picky, especially if you overwater. These guys seem to be okay no matter what you do. I mean, let's not get crazy. I'm being a little dramatic, but really, Graptopetalum for me have been so easy. I grow them indoors, outdoors. I just recently took in my outdoor Graptopetalum because I'm saving them for next year. I don't want to have to go and buy more. I could, but I don't like when my beautiful plants die outside. So that is this beautiful variegated Graptopetalum. Next up, we have a Pothos. Now this plant is very controversial because it looks a lot like another variety. This plant is the Pothos Glacier, which looks very similar a lot of times to Pothos Enjoy. Difference is, if you do research on the internet in particular, you'll find that the Pothos Glacier, what differentiates it from the Enjoy is the gray-silver intermediate color. Enjoy has blocks of white or cream and blocks of green. Similar to this leaf, except not completely. You can see here, there is the cream or the white and the green, and then there's also the silver. On every leaf, you can see that. Also, a lot of people say that for Enjoy, the white variegation should only be on the outer edges of the leaf. If there's green outer edges, that could be another sign that you have a glacier and not an Enjoy. But those three colors really are what make up, in most cases, a glacier. This plant was a little cutting that I have now in semi-hydro in Leca. And you can see it's got a long stem. I almost lost this plant. It's got two stems actually. I almost lost this plant because it was so small and it was in soil. And of course, in my growing environment, soil is a big no-no. They just don't do well here. Maybe it's the lack of airflow. I do not know, but it's a home. It's not a greenhouse. So that could be why. Yeah, but this plant, even though it's slow growing, is gorgeous. It's beautiful. It almost looks like a variegated ivy, like a Hedera helix. I just love this plant. I'm just so glad that I found it when I did, even though now it's probably more common than it used to be, but that doesn't matter to me. I love it. I think it's beautiful. I think it's great. I give this Better Grow Orchid Plus fertilizer. It's a liquid fertilizer. It's also in the description, like I said, and it does great. It does phenomenally well in Leca. A lot of people say that Pothos don't do well in Leca for them. This one has not given me any problems. Again, in soil, it was giving me issues. In Leca semi-hydro, not so much. It's doing great. So yeah, this is the Pothos Glacier. Moving on, boom, another succulent. Interesting plant. This is an intergeneric hybrid, which is a hybrid between two different genera. It's a hybrid between Gasteria and an aloe. It's called Gastor Aloe, and this is called green ice. This plant has leaves that are so thick you would swear that the plant is fake. It feels like plastic. Whenever somebody has seen this and they touch it, they're like, oh, that's not a real plant, right? I'm like, yeah, it is. It is a very slow growing plant though. I've only got one leaf. There's a second leaf starting to grow in there now, but I only have like one leaf that has grown on this plant in the months that I've had it. So not the fastest growing plant if you are impatient, like I tend to be most times, but I just love it and I think it's beautiful. I don't need it to grow fast. I just have it because I love it. And that's it. It's in semi-hydro in Leca as well. For semi-hydro succulents like this, I tend to let the reservoir dry out completely because most succulents, as you probably know if you have any, they tend to like that wet dry cycle a lot. It tends to be like a requirement for them to grow healthy. And what I've noticed is if I keep a reservoir with these succulents, they'll survive, they'll thrive. They just won't have growth spurts like they do when they dry out completely and then you water them again. Like the rainy season comes and then boom, they grow. So for most of my succulents that are in semi-hydro with Leca or lava rock, I tend to let them dry out between waterings. So yes, this is Gastor Aloe, green ice, beautiful plant, feels fake. Look for it if you want it. It's all over the internet. And moving on to the next one, boom, another Tradescantia. This is Tradescantia Nuk. This is very popular. It seems to be everywhere at the moment. It's been everywhere for the last few years, actually. A lot of people struggle with this plant. I'm not gonna sugarcoat this, and I can understand why. Because when I first got this plant, it was in soil, and I've had Nanuk before, and they've always started to die off at the growth point, which to me says, all right, there's an issue with the roots. So, of course, my favorite growing method, or at least one of my favorite growing methods, is water culture. I moved this plant into water culture, you can see a while back, because look at those roots. Those are all new roots, and they are healthy as can be. Nutricoat fertilizer pellets at the bottom somewhere. Oh, you can't see, there they are. So this plant in particular, the best way for me to grow it is in water culture. And as you can see, It is very, very healthy. This has grown a lot. This was in a 4-inch pot, so it has grown quite a bunch, quite a lot since I've transferred it over. And it's not even in very bright light. If it was in bright light, these variegated parts would be much more pink, like you see on the back end. They'd be much more pink. But because they are whitish, that tells me, okay, it's not getting a lot of light. It's not hurting the plant. It would be more compact, just like the other Tradescantia I showed you in the beginning. And it would be more pink if it got more light. So yeah, you want more color? Give it more light. You just want it to be healthy and beautiful. It can handle less light. So I kind of like the variety of the pink in some and then the white in the others. So I'm probably going to keep it where it is for a while. But again, if I want it to pop with that pink color, I'll just put it under brighter light. And again, they love waterculture. Most Tradescantia love waterculture. Yeah, very popular. You can find this everywhere. Internet, in garden shops, big box stores, just everywhere. And again, just like the other Tradescantia, root very easily. Just take a cutting below a node, below a leaf node, put it in some water. That's my preferred method of propagation for these guys. You could put it in some soil or some sphagnum moss, but I don't do that. I like it in water the most for this plant in particular. Leaves are very thick and waxy, and you can tell that they do hold some water. But yeah, put it in some water. In a couple of days, you'll start to see some roots emerging from the node. Very easy, very beautiful. And look at this old leaf. This old leaf is damaged, but the new leaves are beautiful. They're all beautiful, the new leaves. Waterculture, I'm telling you, waterculture. People hate it. Some people hate waterculture. I love it. I live by it for so many of my plants and so many of the genera that I grow. Next up, we have a bromeliad. This is a species of Variegated, and I can't for the life of me find the, oh no, I can find the tag. I was looking on the wrong side. I thought I couldn't find it. Let me pull this out of the pot so we can see. This is a Variegated Ospine Gruberry Hawaiian Magic. That was a mouthful. So this is Hawaiian Magic. This, when it came to me, had not been exposed to a lot of light. So it was originally a light green leaf with dark green variegation, as you can see in the older leaves here, right? The more light I give it, the lighter the leaves become and the darker the variegation, which is so interesting. So it's almost like a lime green leaf now with purple variegation, borderline cream colored leaves. Like I think this would get very, very, very cream colored the more light I give it. It's not getting direct light right now, but it's getting enough bright, natural light from the window that it is coloring up very nicely. This is an epiphytic plant, so I have water in the tank, as you can see in there, and I also water the roots. I water the medium. This is growing in a chunky mix, a bromeliad mix. Again, you know me, I don't like soil a lot, but for bromeliads, they're fine. Not a lot of issues as long as you don't overwater them. I don't keep the medium wet all the time. I let it dry up so at least the top of the medium is dry, but then I give it a nice drink, and I always keep some water in the cup, in the central vase of the plant, and it's doing just fine. It's been growing very well. You could see the newer leaves that since I've had it are the ones that are lighter in color because they're getting brighter light. I think this plant is beautiful. If you want something unique, unusual, and something that people probably haven't seen, a lot of people, especially non-plant people, I would definitely recommend a plant like this, like the Variegated. So, and a beautiful flower spike it gets once it matures. Now, the interesting thing about bromeliads, if you aren't familiar, if you've seen my videos, you know this, but once the bromeliad blooms or even starts to bloom, once it starts to mature, it will send out pups at the base. Usually they come off the base, and then the mother plant eventually will start to wither. It doesn't happen right away, so don't like panic when you see a flower spike come up and say, oh God, it's gonna die. No, it will put out babies, and the babies will help the mother plant survive because the mother won't be able to grow anymore. The growth point is where the flower spike comes out. So there won't be any new growth on the mother, but the pups that grow will help nourish the remaining leaves of that mother for quite some time, months, possibly even a year or two. I've seen that happen with certain varieties of bromeliads. But then you can just remove those pups when they're about a third the size of the mother plant and plant them in their own pot, and they will continue growing and blooming and then create more babies for you. So Vreesia, beautiful. Another reason why Vreesia is really cool is because a lot of bromeliads have thorny edges. They're very like serrated and sharp. These guys don't. They don't have anything. They're very smooth, soft, waxy leaves. So they're human friendly and pet friendly too. They're not toxic. Yeah, just something to know there. All right, last plant we have is something that I'm sure most of you have seen if you're plant peeps. This is a variety of Hoya. This is Hoya Pink Princess. No, not Pink Princess. This is Hoya Crimson Princess, crimson with a K. This plant is just very easy. It's just easy peasy. You can forget about it, and the leaves are so waxy and thick, they retain water, that the plant doesn't have any issues. I don't recommend letting it dry out for too long, because one thing that happened with this plant in particular is I had forgotten about it, and the new little growth vine dried up because it didn't have enough moisture to continue growing and spreading. So just, you know, if you do let it dry out completely, try not to let it dry out completely for too long. That's all I'm going to say. This Hoya, like a lot of my others, is in my acrylic medium. And let's see if you could see any of the roots. Look at those roots. They go crazy. They love acrylic. This particular plant, I've been giving Better Grow Orchid Plus as well. Better Grow Orchid Plus also works well for most types, at least in my experience, most types of epiphytic plants, because they have the macro micronutrients and it is more accessible to the roots of epiphytic plants. But terrestrial plants do great with it too, and that's why I use it for the majority of my plants. Let's just put it that way. Even in water culture, acrylic medium, semi-hydro, whatever you are growing your plants in. So yeah, these Hoyas are just very, very easy, very common. You can find these pretty much everywhere now. And there's another variety that's called Crimson Queen, and the difference is Crimson Queen has the variegation on the outside of the leaf. So these have the variegation on the inner portion of the leaf with some splash, some speckling. Very fun, interesting plant. The flowers are beautiful umbels. They smell kind of like chocolate. They have a chocolatey scent to them. And every time they bloom, I want to just sniff the plant all day. I know that sounds crazy. Okay, scratch that. I don't want to be demonetized. But anyway, Hoya Crimson Princess. Beautiful plant. Beautiful variegated plant. Oh, and in highlight, the variegation turns almost like an orangey pinkish. And actually, it can even borderline on red. Mine, I don't have in bright light, so they stay the creamish, or even like a pinky orange. But yeah, that's where it gets its name from, obviously. Crimson, meaning red. So yeah, there you have it. These are just some of my favorite variegated plants that I have in my collection. If you have any question on any of these plants, reach out and let's talk about it. If you're having trouble sourcing them and you live in the United States, I could probably help you. But yeah, these plants are just really, really cool. All of them, at least in the ways that I'm growing them, are very, very easy to grow. I can't speak to soil growing very much because I don't have a lot of luck with soil growing for a lot of plants. Some plants, yeah, not a lot of them. I found my alternate methods because I just wanted my plants to thrive, grow, and be happy. So yeah, doesn't mean you have to do it. I'm not telling everyone just transfer everything to water culture or to acrylic yarn. I'm not telling you to do that. I do that because the proof is in the pudding. My plants are really happy with this. So if you want to give it a shot, I say go for it. And I can guide you. I can help you with my experience, but I'm not telling anybody to do that. So everybody calm down, okay? Everybody relax. But anyway, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell if you want to be notified anytime I upload a video, and I will see you in the next video. And if you haven't, please subscribe.